So you are welcome to session 6, which is a continuation of instrumental and operant conditioning. We're going to continue with this as part of our discussions. I am Idris Abdul Nasir. So as I mentioned, this continues the discussions on operant conditioning, but this time we're going to focus on the mechanism by which behavior is learned through reinforcement and punishment, and how to apply this to learning situations. We'll move on to also look at comparing reinforcement and punishment as strategies for effective use in shaping behavior. So we expect that the student at the end of this session will understand the various schedules of reinforcement and also be able to explain what aversive conditioning is and demonstrate skills in application of operant conditioning in everyday situation. Based on that, we'll be discussing 3 topics. The first one is schedules of reinforcement. The second topic is aversive conditioning, and the third is application of operant conditioning in everyday situation. Relevant texts and chapters as written lists are on the Sakai for students to take. So the first topic for this session is schedules of reinforcement. What is it? What is the schedule of reinforcement? It tells us when and after what number of responses of desired behavior to give reinforcement. It's important that we get to know this so it will help in strategizing how to reinforce or punish behaviors as appropriately. But here we're looking at reinforcement. So at what time and what amount or what quantity, what amount or number of responses of desired behavior should an individual exhibit before being given reinforcement. So the procedure of giving reinforcement can be on either regular basis or intermittent schedule. Therefore, we have what is described as continuous reinforcement and partial reinforcement. We'll look at these 2 situations now. Continuous reinforcement. So continuous reinforcement. Here, the arrangement between response and consequence is such that reinforcement is provided after every desired or correct behavior or response. This one is straightforward. Any time a desired behavior is exhibited, reinforcement is given. Any time it occurs, we provide a reinforcement. But let's look at partial reinforcement. With partial reinforcement, we reinforce the desired response only part of the time. So it makes learning occur slowly, but when it occurs, it is resistant to extension. It takes time for it to extend. So you don't reinforce every behavior and you don't reinforce any time, but you selectively do this. That's why we describe it as partial. So it can be divided into 2 main types. We have ratio schedule and we have interval schedule. With ratio schedule, when reinforcement is given based on the number of desired response, then we are describing this as ratio schedule. On the other hand, if it's based on passage of time, then it is called interval schedule. But with these 2 have their subtypes again that we're going to be looking at. So we can have fixed ratio schedules, we have variable ratio schedule, we have fixed interval schedules, and we have variable interval schedules. So you can see that it is the previous 2 types that we've broken down into these 4 main types we're going to be describing. Let's take the very first one, fixed ratio schedule of reinforcement. With this, behavior is reinforced only after the behavior occurs at a specified number of times. So we look at the number of times of a behavior before we provide the reinforcement. For instance, people who get paid on commission basis are working on a fixed ratio schedule. That is, you have a certain number of items or a certain number of acceptable responses to be reinforced. Let's say someone who is working in a bank and is supposed to get 5 customers to come and open account with the bank. Every 5th person, after every 5th person, you are giving your commission. It's an example of fixed ratio. After every 5th person, so you get 5, you come for your commission. You go again, you get the next person, up to the next 5, you come, you are giving your commission. So that's an example of fixed ratio schedule. With the variable, as the name implies, the desired behavior is reinforced after an unpredictable number of times. So you don't know when, you don't know the number of times that you engage in this behavior for you to be reinforced. Example is when someone engages in gambling or staking lottery. The person doesn't know at what the number of times the person should stake for the person to win. He only does so with the knowledge that at one point in time he's going to win. Then let's look at the interval. We have the fixed interval and the variable interval. So with fixed interval schedule, a desired behavior is reinforced only after a specified time has elapsed. So here time is what is used, not the number of responses, but time. For instance, when children are given some reinforcement at certain specified time, let's say every 3 hours, you decide to give them a kind of reinforcement, then you are using the fixed interval schedule. Sometimes it could be babies, breastfeeding the baby at regular intervals. So that is fixed intervals. If you use the other behavior of matured people who expect to be reinforced at a certain point in time, then when the time is getting near, they will want to exhibit such behaviors as to draw the attention of the person reinforcing to be ready to give the reinforcement. So that's fixed interval. The variable interval, on the other hand, is a situation where a desired behavior is reinforced at an unpredictable time intervals. So here you can't tell the time intervals. And because the reward is unpredictable, variable interval lends itself to a slow but enduring pattern of behavior. So with this, what it means is you could be reinforced at any time. It could be 15 minutes time, it could be 30 minutes, it could be 17 minutes, it could be 21 minutes time. You are not sure when it comes. So yours is to continuously be engaging in the appropriate behaviors and you will be reinforced. So variable interval schedule. So this is it for the first topic. So let's move on to the next topic 2, which looks at aversive conditioning. Aversive conditioning. There are several types. We'll look at them as we move on. So the first one is escape conditioning. Escape conditioning. With this, an organism learns a response to terminate an aversive event. To terminate an aversive event. Escape. So it is said to be escape because you experience the unpleasant or aversive event first, then you learn a behavior that terminates it. So that is simply escape conditioning. The other one is avoidance learning. With avoidance learning, it occurs when an organism learns a response that results in the cancellation of a looming aversive event. So what it means is you take steps to cancel the event that is about to occur, try to avoid it. So an organism responds to the signal of an impending event in a way that permits it to evade this event. For instance, if a taxi driver is driving and there is a signal on the fuel gauge that is red, he takes steps by getting to the nearest filling station to buy enough fuel to avoid running out of fuel and the unexpected or unintended consequences of the stresses and also the inconveniences that you will go through. So try to avoid that. So taking steps to avoid it. You learn to take steps to avoid certain aversive events from occurring. The next one is learned helplessness. With learned helplessness, it explains the situation where one learns that there is an explicit lack of contingency between responses and an aversive outcome. How does it work? Take a child who usually gets insulted or reprimanded by the parents for no offense. With time, the child will try everything, and yet the parents will continue to be punishing her with the insult and so on. But with time, the child will become helpless because he or she sees no relationship between her behavior and the punishment or the insults that are coming. So there's nothing he could do about it. So these are the aversive conditioning that are talked about: the escape, the avoidance, and learning helplessness. Thank you very much for this topic. Let's move on to the next topic, which is punishment. Topic 3. Topic 3, punishment. We want to look at punishment in greater detail. So punishment is a negative consequence that leads to a reduction in the frequency of occurrence of behavior that precedes it. And since punishment is an unpleasant consequence, it diminishes the likelihood that the target behavior will be repeated. When the behavior is followed by something that is not pleasant, that association between the two will let the behavior to be suppressed or reduced in terms of occurrence. Psychologists have come to the realization that punishment by itself does not remove the behavior that it follows. At best, what it does is it suppresses it. It's just trying to draw our attention to the fact that we should not be using punishment as one of the strategies for removing behavior. What we're doing with that is suppressing that behavior, because if you don't do it well, you are likely to create something else, because it has side effects. It has side effects. We should use reinforcement more often and minimize the use of punishment because it has side effects. Let's look at the side effects of punishment. The first one is the recipient of punishment may begin to fear the person who administered the punishment. That is, you tend to associate that pain or the feeling of being punished with the person who is giving the punishment. Moreover, it's important for us to understand that it is the behavior that we should be punishing and not the person, because our goal should be to reduce the behavior and not to inflict pain unnecessarily on the person, but to reduce behavior. Number 2, severe punishment can make a person become timid and lose self-confidence. So it's important we take note of this. And also, physical punishment can lead to aggression, because people want to react when they are being attacked physically. So they consider it as aggression, and they may learn one day to also use punishment, and it may result in aggression between the person giving and the person being punished. It can also cause physical mayhem to the recipient, especially when the person administering the punishment is doing so out of control of the emotions. So it's important that we consider all these side effects as we try to study punishment and not to use them as often because of the side effects. However, if you want to make punishment work, it's important to consider this, the timing. The timing should be very short, so the person will be able to associate the behavior that occurred with the punishment that is being given. So they will learn to stay away from that behavior because they don't want to get the timing. This is important because when you delay in giving punishment, the person receiving the punishment sees it as a kind of out of place because they don't see why they are being given this punishment at this time. So it's important that it comes as close as possible immediately so that there will be association. Then it should be consistent. Consistency here refers to a situation where sometimes people administer punishment and they follow it up immediately with reward or reinforcement. It confuses the person who is being corrected. It confuses the person being corrected. You don't know whether it's being rewarded or is being asked to change certain behaviors, and we know the effect of being rewarded. So the likelihood is for the person to associate the behavior with the reward instead of the punishment. So then let's be consistent. If the behavior is not right and we want to correct that behavior and we are administering punishment, we should do so, and we should be consistent in all situations in the way that will get the person to associate the consequence with the behavior and then minimize the behavior. The intensity, the duration, all these are factors that make punishment work. And also teaching alternative behaviors can help. Instead of just punishing and leaving it there, it's important to let the person know what should have been the alternative acceptable behavior, so the person will consider the acceptable behavior and don't just leave the person after being punished. So that is it for punishment. So now we want to look at the last topic, application of operant condition in everyday situation. This is just brief. We're going to be looking at how to apply operant condition in our everyday situation. It's very important that whatever we learn, we make use of this in real life situation. So operant condition principles have proved useful in training children, workers, and many other people in our homes, in our industrial organizations, and in school, and so on. So for instance, in the house or at home, parents use shaping or methods of successive approximation to get children to behave well. So we shape children's behaviors using rewards or reinforcements and sometimes punishment, so children will behave well. In our industries, we use operant conditioning, reinforcement, and also punishment in so many ways. We use them for rewards. Those who really performed are rewarded. So they associate the reward with the performance or achieving their targets, so that next time they want to achieve their targets again, so they will get the reward. When people misbehave to maybe coming to work late or absenting themselves from work or engaging in some other counterproductive work behaviors, they are sanctioned appropriately. So they tend to associate the sanctions with the behaviors that they exhibited, so they don't repeat said behaviors. In training situations, feedback is given, so people will get to associate the skills that they want to, the organization want them to acquire with the feedback and also the reward that comes with it. In schools, we don't have to say it, but it's there straight away, the grades that we get for learning, for providing correct responses during exams and even in classroom, the praises, the grades, the good grades, and also sometimes the grades that we get for not answering questions correctly. All these are the application of operant conditioning in our daily situations at homes, in organizations, and in schools. Everywhere, this concept is very important, and I urge you to really get to understand it better as you move out there, because you use it wherever you find yourself. Thank you very much, and this is where we bring to an end the concept of operant conditioning. So we'll move on to the next session, which is going to be session 7. Thank you.